The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Hanseong Hotel cast fractured light across Seoul's most powerful faces. The annual Children's Foundation Charity Gala had drawn senators, celebrities and corporate titans worth billions. Among them walked a woman in a modest emerald dress she had altered herself at 2 a.m. the night before. Sora Bennett moved through the crowd like a ghost returning to a world that had forgotten her name. Elegant guests paused their conversations. Some laughed behind silk fans. Others whispered about the woman who clearly didn't belong. A volunteer coordinator stepped into her path, clipboard raised like a shield. "Excuse me, the service entrance is around back." Sora's fingers tightened around her invitation. Before she could respond, a socialite in designer diamonds leaned toward her companion. "These galas are invitation only. Someone should really check credentials more carefully." Laughter rippled through nearby guests. Across the ballroom, a man in a tailored navy suit watched everything unfold. Park Jae-won. Former rising diplomat. Former fiancé. He lifted his champagne glass, lips curving into a satisfied smile. She came crawling back, he thought. And life finally proved me right. He had abandoned her 5 years ago when her family's scandal destroyed everything. Now she stood humiliated in a room full of people who remembered her fall. Security guards approached. Sora's heart raced beneath her careful composure. The enormous gilded doors at the ballroom's entrance slowly opened. Silence spread like winter frost across the room. Every conversation died. Every glass paused midair. A man entered. Kwon Tae-hyun. The Black Dragon of Seoul. His presence commanded the attention of every person breathing in that room. Behind him walked 6 men in black, moving like shadows. Senators straightened their postures. CEOs lowered their eyes. No one dared approach him first. But Tae-hyun wasn't looking at any of them. His piercing dark eyes cut through the crowd with surgical precision. Past the politicians. Past the celebrities. Past the trembling socialite who had just mocked a stranger. He walked directly toward Sora Bennett. The crowd parted like the sea before an ancient king. Without a single word, Tae-hyun reached her side. His hand, strong, deliberate, settled gently around her waist. Beneath his tailored cuff, a tattoo emerged. Korean calligraphy intertwined with African Adinkra symbols. Legi, 40. Eternal bond. He surveyed the frozen ballroom with calm contempt. Then spoke. "Why is my wife standing here alone?" The words landed like thunder in absolute silence. Champagne glasses trembled. The socialite's face drained of color. Park Jae-won's smile shattered into something unrecognizable. Because in that single devastating moment he realized the truth. He had abandoned a woman he never truly knew. And now she stood claimed by the most powerful man in Korea. Dear viewer, this story explores what happens when love survives betrayal, when secrets protect instead of destroy, and when the truth finally rises from years of painful silence. The stories about second chances and hidden destinies move your heart. You're exactly where you belong. Please like, share and subscribe. 5 years earlier, the Bennett family had been diplomatic royalty. Sora's father, David Bennett, was a respected American ambassador with Ghanaian roots. Her mother, Yoon Mi-ja, came from one of Korea's oldest scholarly families. Together they had raised Sora between 2 worlds. She spoke 3 languages. She understood silence as deeply as speech. She moved through both African and Korean traditions with equal grace. At 22, Sora had been engaged to Park Jae-won, a rising star in Korea's foreign ministry. Handsome, ambitious, perfect on paper. But paper burns easily. When her father was falsely accused of embezzlement, a conspiracy that would take years to unravel, everything collapsed overnight. Bank accounts frozen. Family name destroyed. Friends who once filled their home vanished like morning mist. Jae-won called her exactly once after the scandal broke. "I can't be associated with this," he said. "Surely you understand." The line went dead. Sora understood perfectly. She understood that love built on convenience dies at the first inconvenience. She understood that she was alone. What Jae-won never knew, what no one knew, was that during those final months before the scandal, Sora had already given her heart to someone else. Someone dangerous. Someone powerful. Someone who had married her in secret. Kwon Tae-hyun. 3 months before the scandal, they had met at a quiet art exhibition in Insadong. Sora had wandered into a gallery showcasing traditional African textiles alongside Korean hanbok fabrics. Taehyun stood before a piece that merged both traditions, Ghanaian Kent patterns woven with Korean silk techniques. My grandmother would have wept seeing this, Sora said softly, not realizing she'd spoken aloud. Taehyun turned. His eyes, dark, piercing, impossibly calm, found hers. Which grandmother? Both, she admitted. For different reasons. He almost smiled. Almost. That was the beginning. Their courtship existed in shadows. Late-night conversations on rooftops overlooking the Han River. Walks through empty temples at dawn. Dinners in private rooms where Taehyun dismissed his guards so they could speak freely. He never rushed. He never demanded. He simply watched her. Learned her. Memorized the way she tilted her head when thinking. The way her hands moved when she arranged flowers. The way silence between them felt like its own language. Why me? She asked once as autumn leaves drifted around them. Taehyun's jaw tightened. His fingers brushed her wrist, just barely, where her pulse raced beneath her skin. Because you look at me, he said quietly, and you see something no one else does. What do they see? A monster. Sora held his gaze. I see a man standing alone in a room full of people afraid of him. She paused. That's not power. That's loneliness. Taehyun's expression didn't change, but his hand closed around hers, and didn't let go. They married in secret. A traditional ceremony witnessed only by his grandmother and two trusted elders from his organization. Sora wore white hanbok with subtle gold embroidery. Taehyun wore black. When he bowed before the ancestral altar, promising to protect her with everything he possessed, Sora noticed his hands trembling. The black dragon of soul. Trembling. For her. That night, before they could begin their new life together, Sora received a message. 3 photographs. Her parents' house surrounded by unmarked vehicles. Her younger brother walking to school, unaware of the man following 20 steps behind. Her own face captured through a rifle scope. The message was clear. Leave him. Or watch everyone you love die. Sora didn't sleep that night. She lay beside her husband in his penthouse, memorizing the way moonlight traced his sharp features. The way his chest rose and fell in peaceful rhythm. The way his hand reached for her even in sleep. By morning she had made her decision. She would protect him the only way she could. By letting him believe she never loved him at all. The morning she disappeared, Sora left a note. Brutal. Calculated to wound. I married you for protection. Nothing more. Your world suffocates me. Don't look for me. She walked out with nothing but her clothes and her breaking heart. What she didn't know then, what would haunt her for 5 years, was that she carried his children. Twins. Conceived in love. Born in hiding. Raised in secrets. Present day. Sora's flower shop occupied a quiet corner in Mapogu. Bloom and Belonging, the hand-painted sign read. Below the shop sat a small cafe where neighborhood grandmothers gathered for tea and local artists displayed their work on consignment. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't powerful. But it was hers. Sora had built it with her own hands. With the small inheritance her grandmother had secretly left her. With 5 years of exhaustion, sacrifice, and quiet determination. And with 2 little girls who made every struggle worthwhile. Yama. The twins burst through the back door like twin hurricanes. Hannah and Nari. 5 years old. Identical faces. Completely different souls. Hannah, the older by 7 minutes, approached everything with intense observation. She watched. She analyzed. She spoke only when certain of her words. Nari exploded into every moment with fearless joy. She laughed loudly. She hugged strangers. She believed the world existed specifically to love her. Both girls had their mother's warm brown skin. But their eyes, dark, piercing, impossibly perceptive, belonged entirely to their father. Sometimes Sora caught Hannah studying her with an expression that stopped her heart. The same expression Taehyun wore when calculating something no one else could see. What did you learn today? Sora asked, kneeling to their height. Ms. Park says I asked too many questions, Hannah reported seriously. I made a friend. Nari announced simultaneously. His name is Puppy. Puppy is not his name, Hannah corrected. His name is Miho. He just looks like a puppy. Sora laughed, a rare genuine sound, and pulled them both close. These girls were her universe. Her reason for surviving. Her secret she would protect with her last breath. That evening, after the gala, after the humiliation, after Taehyun's devastating declaration, Sora sat alone in her apartment above the flower shop. The twins slept peacefully in their shared bedroom, unaware that their mother's world had just shattered. Her hands trembled as she poured tea. How had he known she would be there? How had he known at all? The invitation had arrived anonymously 3 weeks ago. A chance to reconnect with society. A chance to show her face without shame now that her father's name had been quietly cleared. She had debated for days before deciding to go. Just once, she told herself. Just to prove she could stand among them without breaking. She hadn't expected to see J1. She definitely hadn't expected to see. A knock at the door. Soft. Deliberate. Sora's blood turned to ice. She knew that knock. She had dreamed about it for 5 years. Slowly she crossed to the door. Her hand hesitated on the handle. Then, she opened it. Kwon Taehyun stood in the narrow hallway. His black suit remained immaculate. His expression remained unreadable. But his eyes, those dark, piercing eyes, burned with something she had only seen once before. The night she left him. "You ran," he said quietly. "Again." Sora's throat tightened. "You shouldn't be here." And yet. His gaze swept past her, cataloging the modest apartment with predatory precision. "Here I am." Taehyun didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped inside and Sora found herself retreating instinctively. Not from fear. From the overwhelming presence of him. 5 years had sharpened his features. Hardened his jaw. But his eyes still saw straight through her. "You let them humiliate you," he said, moving through her small living room like a panther surveying unfamiliar territory. "You stood there while they laughed. It doesn't matter. It matters to me." The words hung between them. Dangerous. Waited. Sora forced herself to meet his gaze. "Why did you do that? At the gala? Why claim me publicly?" Taehyun's jaw tightened. His fingers, those long, elegant fingers she had once traced with her own, curled at his sides. "Because you are still my wife. I left you. You left a note." His voice dropped, quiet and lethal. "That is not the same thing." I explained. "You lied." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Sora's careful composure cracked. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand." Taehyun stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same scent she remembered from countless nights wrapped in his arms. "Help me understand why I woke up to words that didn't sound like you. Why I spent 3 years searching for a woman who didn't want to be found. Why I—" He stopped. His expression shuddered. "Why you what?" Sora whispered. Taehyun's gaze dropped to where his tattoo emerged beneath his cuff. The Korean and African symbols intertwined. The mark he had gotten the night they married. "I mourned you," he said flatly. "Every day. Even while I hated you." Sora's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. "I did what I had to do." "For whom?" "For you." Her voice broke. "They would have destroyed you. They would have." "Who?" The question cut through her like a blade. Sora pressed her lips together. Shook her head. Some secrets were still too dangerous to share. Taehyun studied her for a long moment. Then his gaze shifted. Moved past her. Toward the hallway. Where a small pink backpack sat beside the bedroom door. A backpack decorated with twin cartoon bunnies. His expression didn't change. But Sora saw it. The almost imperceptible stillness that meant his mind was calculating something significant. "You live alone?" he asked carefully. "Yes." He looked at the backpack again. At the 2 pairs of tiny shoes by the door. At the children's drawings taped to the refrigerator. When his eyes returned to hers, something shifted in their depths. Something ancient. Hungry. Knowing. Sora. Her name on his lips. After 5 years. She couldn't bear it. "You should leave." "Who lives here with you?" "No one." "You're lying again." "Taehyun." A sound from the hallway. Soft footsteps. A sleepy voice. "Yama." Sora's heart stopped. Hannah appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, her dark hair mussed from sleep. She looked at Sora. Then at the stranger in their living room. Her eyes, his eyes, narrowed with familiar suspicion. "Who's that?" she asked. Taehyun went absolutely still. The world held its breath. Sora watched Taehyun stare at her daughter, their daughter, with an expression she couldn't decipher. Hannah stared back. Two mirror images of the same soul separated by 34 years. "I'm a friend of your mother's," Taehyun said finally. His voice was gentle. Completely unlike the cold authority he wielded everywhere else. Hannah tilted her head. Considered him. "You're wearing the same shoes my mom hides in her closet." Sora's blood chilled. The shoes. She had kept one pair of his shoes. The ones he'd worn on their wedding night. Leather. Italian. Distinctive. She had never been able to throw them away. Taehyun's gaze flickered to Sora. Question. Realization. Hunger. "Hannah, go back to bed," Sora said quickly. "But..." "Now, sweetheart." Hannah looked between them once more. Then padded back to her room with obvious reluctance. The moment her door clicked shut, Taehyun turned to Sora. All gentleness vanished. "How old?" "Don't." "How old, Sora?" His voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. The quiet fury in it shook her to her bones. "5, she whispered. Taehyun closed his eyes. His hand rose to his chest, pressed flat over his heart, as if trying to hold something together. 5 years, he repeated. "I can explain." "Is there another one?" Sora's silence was answer enough. "Twins," he breathed. The word fell between them like a bomb. "I was protecting them." Tears spilled down Sora's cheeks now. "I was protecting you. The people who threatened me, they would have used them. They would have." "Who?" "I don't know." Sora's composure shattered completely. "I never knew. They knew everything about my family, about yours, about the marriage no one was supposed to know about. They had surveillance. They had resources. They were powerful enough to frame my father for crimes that took years to disprove." Taehyun's expression hardened. The black dragon emerging from the man. "You should have trusted me. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk you charging into something that would have destroyed us all. So I made them believe I never loved you. I let you hate me. Because hating me meant you would stop looking. And stopping meant surviving." Silence. Long. Agonizing. Taehyun moved toward her. Sora held her ground. He stopped inches away. Close enough to touch. He didn't. "I never stopped looking," he said quietly. "I just became better at hiding it." Sora's tears fell faster. "I have loved you," Taehyun continued, his voice dropping to something almost tender, "through 5 years of silence. Through hatred I couldn't sustain. Through dreams that showed me your face and woke me reaching for someone who wasn't there." His hand rose. Hovered near her cheek. Still didn't touch. "You let me believe I was unloved. That you used me. That I was foolish to have trusted anyone with my heart." "I'm sorry," Sora whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'm not finished." She fell silent. "You also gave me children." His voice cracked. Barely, almost imperceptibly. "Daughters who have my eyes. Who have lived 5 years without knowing their father's face." Sora couldn't breathe. "I will never forgive you for that." Pain exploded in her chest. "But I will also never stop protecting what is mine." His hand finally touched her face. "Oh, Reverend. And you, Sora Bennett, have always been mine." 3 weeks later. Taehyun didn't move into Sora's life. He simply appeared. His security detail established surveillance around the flower shop. His assistant began handling the business insurance Sora had struggled to afford. His presence became a shadow she felt even when she couldn't see him. The twins were confused at first. Nari accepted him immediately, she accepted everyone immediately. Hannah took longer. She watched him with those piercing eyes. Tested him with questions designed to reveal inconsistency. "Why do you look at our mom like that?" she asked one afternoon. Taehyun knelt to her level. "Like what?" "Like she might disappear." The honesty of children. Devastating. "Because she disappeared before," he answered simply. "And I'm afraid she might do it again." Hannah considered this. "She won't." "How do you know?" "Because we're here now." Hannah's small hand pressed against his chest, right over his heart. "And Iyama never leaves us." Something shifted in Taehyun's expression. Something broke. Something healed. He pulled Hannah into a careful embrace. His first hug from his daughter. 5 years late. But finally his. AfroSeoul. In a penthouse overlooking Gangnam, a man studied surveillance photographs. Sora Bennett leaving her flower shop. The twins walking to school. Kwon Taehyun's vehicles parked nearby. Park Jae-won set down his whiskey glass. He found her. His associate nodded. Your mother's plan worked for 5 years. But now. My mother is dead. Jae-won's voice hardened. Her plans die with her. Sir, if Kwon discovers the conspiracy originated from your family. He won't. But the evidence. Evidence can be destroyed. Jae-won stood straightening his tie. Or redirected. He picked up one photograph. Sora smiling at something outside the frame. Still beautiful. Still graceful. Still the woman he had thrown away for ambition. If I can't have her, he said quietly, neither will he. He came to the flower shop on a Tuesday. Not Jae-won. Someone far more dangerous in a different way. Commonth. Tech billionaire. Philanthropist. Seoul's most eligible bachelor. And unknown to most, a legitimate business rival who had been circling Taehyun's empire for years. I need flowers for my mother's birthday, he said, his smile easy and warm. Sora helped him select an arrangement of white peonies and soft pink roses. Minseo returned the next day. And the next. By the fourth visit he wasn't even pretending to need flowers. Have dinner with me, he said simply. Sora's hands stilled on the roses she was trimming. I appreciate the offer, but I know who you are. Who you were. I know about the scandal, the accusations, the truth that eventually emerged. I know your father was innocent. Minseo leaned against the counter, his expression genuine. I also know you've been alone for a long time. Sora met his eyes. I'm not alone. The children, yes. But I know what you mean. She returned to the roses. And my answer is still no. Taehyun heard about Minseo's visits within hours. He arrived at the shop just as Minseo was leaving. The two men passed each other in the doorway. Minseo smiled pleasantly. Mr. Kwon. I've heard so much about you. And I've heard you've been frequenting this establishment. Taehyun's voice held a chill. Interesting choice for a man who sends assistants to handle his personal errands. Some things deserve personal attention. The air between them crackled. Minseo's smile widened. She's remarkable, isn't she? Strong. Graceful. Building something beautiful from nothing. He paused. A woman like that deserves someone who can be there openly. Publicly. Without the complications of your particular world. Taehyun's jaw tightened. His tattoo was visible beneath his cuff as his fingers curled. Careful, he said quietly. Just one word. But the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Minseo studied him for a long moment. Then laughed softly. So the rumors are true. The Black Dragon has a weakness. He stepped past Taehyun. How interesting. The following evening, Taehyun's head of intelligence presented his findings in the penthouse study. Park Jae-won's mother orchestrated the original threat. Taehyun's expression didn't change. But his bodyguard noticed the pen in his hand slowly bending under pressure. She discovered your secret marriage through a contact in your grandmother's household. She saw Sora as competition for her son's political future. When Sora refused to end the marriage quietly, Mrs. Park manufactured the threat against her family. The photographs. The surveillance. All staged. But convincing enough to terrify a 22-year-old woman trying to protect everyone she loved. Taehyun set down the destroyed pen. Mrs. Park died 3 years ago. Yes. But her son inherited her network. Her contacts. Her secrets. The intelligence officer paused. Including the secret that you have children. Silence. Absolute. Jae-won knows. He received his mother's files after her death. He's known for 2 years. He's been watching. Waiting. For what? We believe he intended to reveal the children publicly when it would cause maximum damage. Destroy your reputation. Expose your personal life. Weaken your position. Taehyun rose from his desk. Walked to the window. The city lights stretched below him like scattered jewels. And now that I've publicly claimed Sora? He's accelerating. Our sources suggest he's preparing something. We don't yet know what. Taehyun's reflections stared back at him from the glass. Calculated. Find out. 1 week later. Sora found the photographs in the twins' backpacks. Surveillance images. The girls walking to school. Playing in the park. Sleeping in their beds. Her blood turned to ice. Within minutes she was throwing clothes into suitcases. We're leaving, she told the twins, her voice tight with controlled panic. Why? Hannah asked, already reading her mother's fear. Adventure, Sora lied. Remember how we talked about visiting Grandma's village in Ghana? Nari's eyes lit up. Hannah's narrowed with suspicion. But they began packing. They were leaving through the back entrance when a black car pulled into the alley. Taehyun stepped out. His expression was thunderous. You're running. They found us. They found the girls. I know. I'm handling it. Like you handled it 5 years ago? The words escaped before Sora could stop them. Pain flashed across Taehyun's features. Then hardened into stone. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Sora's composure cracked. I built a life. A safe, quiet, invisible life. And now you're exposed. Because of me. Taehyun stepped closer. Because I couldn't stop looking for you. Because I announced to the world that you're mine. I was safer when you didn't know. You were alone. I was protected. You were dying. His voice broke. Do you think I couldn't see it? The exhaustion. The fear. The weight of carrying everything alone for 5 years. Sora's tears spilled over. I was surviving. Surviving is not living. Taehyun reached for her, then stopped. His hand fell. Let me protect you properly this time. Let me be what I should have been 5 years ago. And what is that? Present. The word hung between them. Simple. Devastating. Enough. Yama. Hannah's voice from the doorway. Are we still going to Ghana? Sora looked at her daughter. At those piercing eyes that belonged to the man standing before her. Then at Nari peeking out behind her sister. 2 hearts she would die to protect. She turned back to Taehyun. If anything happens to them, I will burn this city to the ground. The promise was quiet. Absolute. She believed him. The Kong Corporation annual gala 2 weeks later. Minseo had invited half of Seoul's elite, including Sora, and by extension Taehyun. It was a transparent move, a public display of competition. But Taehyun had his own reasons for attending. Park Jae-won would be there. And tonight everything would end. Sora wore gold. Not modest gold. Not altered gold. A gown designed specifically for her by one of Seoul's most sought-after designers. A gift from Taehyun. She had protested. He had simply looked at her with those dark eyes. You walked into a room of vultures wearing armor made of paper. This time, you walk in wearing armor made of fire. The ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers. Live orchestra. 500 of Korea's most powerful people. And standing at its center waiting for them stood Park Jae-won. His smile was sharp as a blade. Sora. You look transformed. Taehyun's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on her waist. She always looked like this, he said calmly. You simply lacked the vision to see it. Jae-won's smile flickered. Interesting. The criminal pretending to appreciate art. The politician pretending to have morals. Tension crackled. Minseo appeared, smoothly inserting himself between them. Gentlemen. This is a charity event. He offered Sora a glass of champagne. Perhaps we could set aside hostilities for the children we're supposedly helping? Sora took the glass. Didn't drink. Her eyes swept the room searching for threats. She found one. A man in the corner. Speaking into a phone. Watching her. Taehyun, she murmured. He followed her gaze. Nodded almost imperceptibly. Somewhere across the room his security moved. 30 minutes later. Daewon made his move. A speech. About family. About truth. About the importance of transparency in public life. Then he smiled at the audience. I believe everyone deserves to know who they're truly dealing with. Which is why I'm honored to share a small discovery. A screen descended behind him. Images appeared. Sora's twins. With Taehyun's eyes clearly visible. Standing next to their mother. Korea's most mysterious businessman, Jaewon announced, has been hiding children. Illegitimate children. With a woman whose family nearly destroyed diplomatic relations 5 years ago. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Phones raised. Cameras flashed. Sora felt the floor disappear beneath her. But Taehyun didn't flinch. He simply stepped forward. You're correct about one thing. His voice carried through the sudden silence. I have children. More murmurs. 2 beautiful daughters who carry my eyes and their mother's grace. He turned to face the room. What Mr. Park failed to mention is that their mother is my wife. Has been my wife for nearly 6 years. A marriage witnessed by elders, blessed by tradition, and protected through circumstances you cannot possibly understand. He looked at Jaewon. What Mr. Park also failed to mention is that his own mother manufactured the threat that separated us. That she terrorized a pregnant woman into fleeing for her children's safety. That she orchestrated 5 years of unnecessary pain because she couldn't accept that her son had been rejected. Jaewon's face went white. That's a lie. Is it? Taehyun produced a folder. Your mother's correspondence. Your father's financial records. Your family's security firm's surveillance logs. All documenting the conspiracy against my wife and her family. He set the folder on a nearby table. Your father's political career. Your family's business interests. Your entire legacy. Taehyun's voice dropped to something terrifying. All of it ends tonight. Unless you walk away from my wife and children. Forever. Silence. Absolute. Deafening. Jaewon looked at the folder. At Taehyun. At the room full of witnesses who would destroy him if those documents went public. Then he turned. And walked away. Later that night. Sora found Taehyun on the balcony of his penthouse. The city sprawled beneath them. Quiet now. Safe. You destroyed him, she said softly. I protected what's mine. She moved to stand beside him. Their shoulders almost touched. The girls are asleep. Your grandmother is watching them. A faint smile crossed Taehyun's features. She threatened to haunt me if I didn't bring them to meet her immediately. She's terrifying. She loves you. He paused. She always did. She knew you didn't leave voluntarily. She just couldn't prove it. Sora's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. She fell silent. Taehyun turned to face her. His hand rose. Cupped her cheek. You survived. You protected our daughters. You built something beautiful from destruction. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You have nothing to apologize for. I hurt you. Yes. The honesty was brutal. And necessary. Will you forgive me? Taehyun's eyes searched hers. I forgave you the moment I understood why you left. Sora's tears fell. He caught them with his thumbs. I spent 5 years mourning a woman who was still alive. Hating a betrayal that never happened. Missing a heartbeat I could still have heard. He leaned closer. No more running. No more hiding. Their foreheads touched. No more silence between us. Never again. And then, finally, his lips found hers. Gentle at first. Questioning. Then deeper. Claiming. Promising. The kiss held 5 years of grief and longing, hope and fear, love that had never died despite everything designed to kill it. When they finally parted, both breathing unsteadily, Taehyun pressed his lips to her forehead. Stay, he whispered. Always. 6 months later. The ceremony was held in the mountains outside Seoul. A private estate. Invitation only. 300 guests who mattered. And 2 flower girls who couldn't stop giggling. Hannah walked with solemn precision, scattering petals in careful patterns. Nari threw them in joyful handfuls, accidentally hitting a senator in the face. Sora wore white hanbok with gold embroidery. A design that mirrored what she had worn 6 years ago in a secret ceremony no one had witnessed. Taehyun wore black. Some traditions they agreed should remain unchanged. When the officiant asked for their vows, Taehyun spoke first. I married you once in silence. In shadows. In fear of what the world would do if they knew. He took her hands. His tattoo, the Korean and African symbols marking their union, was fully visible. Today I marry you in light. In front of everyone who matters. In defiance of every force that tried to separate us. His voice dropped. Just for her. She was always my wife. But today she also becomes my future. Sora's voice trembled. I spent 5 years teaching our daughters that love requires sacrifice. That sometimes protecting someone means letting them go. She squeezed his hands. Today I teach them something different. That love also means staying. Fighting. Choosing each other even when the world says you shouldn't. She looked at Hannah and Nari watching from the front row with matching serious expressions. Today I choose our family. Forever. The kiss was soft. Tender. A promise rather than a claim. And when they turned to face their guests, hands intertwined, the twins rushed forward. Taehyun caught them both. Lifted them. Held them against his chest with Sora pulled close beside him. A family. Finally complete. Finally visible. Finally home. Later as guests celebrated, Taehyun found Sora watching the sunset from the garden. Regretting anything? She turned into his arms. Only the years we lost. Then we'll make the years we have count for twice as much. His hand settled on her waist, right where it had at that gala months ago, when he'd claimed her before a room full of people who had mocked her. I love you, she said. Words she hadn't spoken aloud in 5 years. Words she had been too afraid to say. Taehyun's breath caught. Again. I love you. Again. I love you. She laughed through fresh tears. I will spend the rest of my life telling you. He kissed her forehead. Her cheeks. Her lips. And I will spend the rest of mine making sure you never have reason to doubt it. Across the garden, Hannah watched her parents with thoughtful eyes. Yama and Appa look happy, Nari observed. They are. Will they stay happy? Hannah considered this with the intensity she brought to all things. Then nodded. Yes. How do you know? Hannah watched her father press his lips to her mother's hair. Watched her mother lean into his strength. Watched two people who had survived everything the world could throw at them finally find peace. Because, Hannah said simply, they stopped being scared. Nari accepted this as she accepted everything with absolute faith. And together the twins ran to join their parents. A family reunited. A love restored. A future finally beginning. Thank you for joining us on this journey of love, sacrifice and second chances. Stories like these remind us that true love doesn't just survive. It transforms, protects and ultimately triumphs over everything that stands against it. If this story touched your heart, please like, share and subscribe for more cinematic tales of romance, mystery and redemption. Until next time, dear viewers. Remember, sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones we survive.